Yes, the lights are on. Another week.
What's up,
Another
sport fans?
sports fans out there. We're out there. Another huge week of sports is behind us. So much to talk about. We already know what it is from last week. It was always football. There's some baseball out there still. We're acting like there isn't any baseball, but that's still
Playoffs.
going on. Man,
Playoffs?
playoffs. Exactly. Playoffs, man. Jim Moore loves baseball too. So, hey, you got the football going on, both pro and college. But of course, going into the weekend, we had our big show last Thursday instead of Wednesday when it came down to the alleged big fight we were looking for a little bit of time. I mean, there was some buzz, not buzz like the huge fights we typically follow, but there was enough buzz because, well, Canelo, one of the top fighters in boxing, one of the faces of boxing, if not the face of boxing, now Bud's in there because of what he had done. He takes on Jermell Charlo. I picked him, the only guy on the panel who picked Jermell Charlo. And I picked him based on what I said. If he looks at the B-Vol tape, if he's matured, if he follows directions, if he goes in there and lines only it out, as he's always talked about. And he lied to us, only us. And look what happens to that fight.
Yeah, he fought exactly like a man who moved up two weight divisions for the first time. He fought with zero confidence. It looked like he didn't even try to get Canelo's respect. I mean, he threw a couple counters here and there, but he never like stood his ground and be like, all right, I'm gonna land a good shot. He landed some decent shots, but nothing that made Canelo think twice or even respect him. He never got Canelo's respect.
You know, I was watching the Barrios fight before that, and I was watching that jab he had. That jab was on fire when he was throwing it the fight before. And I came into this fight saying, this is what's going to have to happen, especially after what we talked about last week with B-Vol, following that blueprint that you knew was out there. You had a lot of the B-Vol measurables. You didn't have the natural being 175, but the height, you had the length, you had the athleticism. And I thought he would come out with a jab like that. When he threw that first jab, I was like, oh, no, because it wasn't even a jab that was authoritative. It wasn't snapping. He was pushing and cautious. And I was like, I hope he's just doing that right now just to set up other things. And it stayed that way. Canelo started off on the front foot when he typically just starts off on the back foot. He waits to see what you're doing. Then he puts it together in about the third round, fourth round. Then he comes after you. From jump, he was walking to him with his hands down because he knew he couldn't hurt him. And Charlo didn't try to hurt him.
Yeah, the very first minute or so of the fight, I was surprised because Canelo was backing up. And I said, and I was thinking, is he setting traps? Is he trying to counter? But even while Canelo was backing up, Charlo wasn't doing much. He wasn't going after him. And he definitely wasn't trying to get his pound of flesh. Like I said, he didn't get his respect at all. And then it was like Canelo said, man, this dude ain't doing nothing. I'm just going to go after him. And that's how the fight was the rest of the night. From that point on, Canelo barely took a step back, if ever.
I didn't think that it would end up like that. I thought out of all things, Charlo, you know, we've heard the talk. We've watched him fight. We talked about how he can get into those firefights. But going up 2 weight classes, taking that pain, feeling that power, it's a different thing. It's not sparring. These aren't bigger gloves. You just have guys or someone like Canelo who's in there who tells you from the jump, this is boxing. I'm there to hurt you. And he says that what we're both trying to do. He goes in there, tries to hurt him. Charlo feels every punch that's thrown at him. I mean, he's feeling everything, and he's responding with his eyes. And after he had gotten knocked down with the tempo shot in the 7th round, he just pretty much ignored Derrick James' advice. Ignored him.
He was in full survival mode at that point. I think he was partly in survival mode from the first round on until he got knocked down. Then he was in full survival mode. And I applaud Derrick James trying to hype him up, telling him, hey, man, you need to go out there and stop him. Stop moving. You know, he's trying to motivate him, but it was falling on deaf ears, man.
Yeah, I understand how that can be, being in the corner. You know, that happened. I fought amateur boxing, and I remember, you know, you hear your trainer, and sometimes things are going on in that ring, and things are going through your head, and you don't really concentrate on what your trainer is saying because you're like, man, that dude really crack. You know what I'm saying? This is a high-level deal here. This is world-class, one of the greats of all time. You're going to have to mention that. I mean, it's all relative. One of the greats of all time could still be number 50 out of a list of 100, you know? But Canelo, the bigger guy, the heavier hands, the more seasoned, everything in his advantage, except for this just immeasurables of being tall and longer arms. He bangs on him. You see the response that Charlo has in his eyes. He doesn't want to be in there. He throws punches, and he's throwing arm punches. He's not sitting on any of his punches because he's busy trying to get out of there before the combination's even over. You know, he's not pot shotting. He has faster hands. He doesn't even use those. He throws some of those punches to save face, and it's not doing anything to Canelo. He's dropping his hands, eating his shots, pretty much smiling at him and laughing at him, walking him down, completely took him out of it mentally. And then when Derek James specifically giving instruction, and Charlo goes out, nods his head in the corner, as you know that happens. The bell rings. He does nothing of what Derek James said. You might as well have anybody.
Verse, same as the first, right? And then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way through the first.
and man, it was disappointing. I wasn't expecting that. It was a dud of a fight.
It was, and I'll tell you why. Because he called him out years ago. He's ringside watching this fight, telling people next to him, I can beat him. I can beat Canelo. And, you know, he and his brother talking about lines only. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be confident. Of course they should be confident. But then to go in there and not fight like who you are or who you claim to be, that's the thing about it. You claim to be this, but you fought like that. And that's the most disappointing thing. And when I saw he came in at 167 plus, I was like, oh, that's not good. Because I thought he'd have a speed advantage. And you couldn't tell if he did. I think he would have been better served coming in maybe 162, 163, maybe even 160. And he was going to have to use his speed. And if he had any inclination that he was going to knock him out, that was bad from the start. He should not have been thinking that way. That's not how he was going to win.
Outboxing. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, Canelo can take a shot. I mean, he's taken some serious shots before. The guy has still been there. I haven't seen him as much as dazed in his entire career. I mean, he took a little bit against Triple G with an uppercut, years ago. But this guy's chin is as honest as you could possibly find in boxing at this moment.
Yeah, the one time he was really hurt was against Cotto's brother. But he was still a young fighter.
That was way young. Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, he was actually buzzed.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him buzzed since then.
Well, Triple G made him a little different than just really being, coming forward as he always did. He kind of froze for a minute, but he fought back because I think he realized, man, I got buzzed. I got to let these people know or let Triple G know I'm still here. And he threw the punches back. But, man, I mean, we didn't even see, we talk about the time that Charlo missed because he's been inactive, 16 months, 14 months, whatever it was. But we didn't even get a chance to see if he was rusty. He didn't even do enough for us to say, well, he might have been rusty. He didn't do enough to see if he was rusty or not.
I just thought it was hilarious when he says, that wasn't me in there. Well, who the hell was it then?
I wouldn't admit that either. Wasn't me either.
But then to turn around and say, I want Bud Crawford. I'll fight him at my weight, this and that. Well, why even bother going up if that's how you're going to fight and that's how you feel after the fight when you barely even tried? I don't even know if he did try at all.
Look, we watched the fight. I hate going, talk about fighters, and I understand how dangerous the fight game is and how dangerous it is for these guys on this level, especially the best of the best, regardless of how he fought. He's still among the best on this planet doing what he does. And to go out there and fight with fear, and I hate to say that fighters are scared of one another because typically they aren't, but you could just see by the way they fought that there was more to it than just, a strategy. The strategy was, I don't want to get hit. After getting hit, he didn't want to get hit too much anymore. And this is the game that you've chosen. He has an arsenal. He has firepower to do something back. If you're going up 2 classes, of course, the possibility of getting hurt is probably going to increase even more. But go down on your shield. No one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to be, you can have trolls, but people who respect the game of boxing aren't going to be upset if you get knocked out in a fight like that. Moving up 2 weight classes, you're supposed to get knocked out pretty much against a guy like that. But he did absolutely nothing. No real counters. He didn't let his hands go. He tried to hold a lot. I mean, he didn't even resort to anything dirty. Come on, this guy he was just trying not to make Canelo mad. And Canelo just kind of went with it. Canelo's a dog, man.
And people were talking about, Charlo's demeanor. Where's the fire leading up to the fight? Where's the energy? He's being very respectful. He's kind of quiet, and maybe he like you said, he didn't want to upset Canelo and make things more difficult on himself. But if that's the case, why even take the fight? I don't get it. You
Yeah,
know, I don't. I don't know. I kind of don't want to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm reminded of a movie called 3 O'clock High. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I heard of it. I haven't seen it.
It's a decent movie. It's kind of funny, but this guy, he has a bad reputation. He doesn't like to be bothered with. He doesn't like to be touched, and the dorkiest, nerdiest dude touches him, and so he says, "Me and you are gonna have a fight at 3 o'clock after school." And all day long, he's trying to find a way out of the fight. And he has some money. He offers him some money, and he's like, "There's no catch. You're not, the principal's not in on it. Blah blah." He's like, "No, just call off the fight." He's like, "Yeah, just call it off." All right. He goes, "But you're the biggest pussy I've ever met. You didn't even try. How does that feel?" Like, seriously, I'm not calling Charlo a pussy, but he didn't even try. How does that feel?
And man, on this level, and Bud, by the way, called him out on that. Bud said,
Right.
"Yo, Charles not even on my radar anymore." I don't know if he meant that or he just trolled the hell out of him because Bud has been trolling a little bit lately. I mean, finally, a little bit more personality to Bud, other than being a great fighter. He's throwing a little personality out there now. He's not being completely disrespectful. He's saying everything on cue because of what Charlo did on Saturday, everybody saw. So when Bud makes a comment like that, it's not like someone was going to look at him saying, "Yo, you're doing the wrong thing." We all saw what happened. And for the people who respect
Exactly.
the game,
I detected no lies in that tweet.
there's no lie because there weren't any lies. There were not any lies in the tweet. And man, I just wish things were a little better for Charlo in terms of his overall effort so he wouldn't have to hear this backlash. But that's what he's going to get. And then at the end of the fight, he's calling out, but he already lost his title going into the fight to Tim Tszyu, who's down at 154. So he lost twice. You know what I mean? You go up there, you lose, you embarrass yourself. You're going to come down maybe 154 if he doesn't just stick at 160. And then Bud doesn't want to fight you or calling you pretty much a fraud and saying you're sad and how the performance you put up was pretty sad. Bud went in on him like most people did. And then for him to, at the end of the fight, he didn't knock me out. And you saw what it was all about then. He didn't knock me out like he did those other guys. It was survival, man. You was glad to
Yeah.
stand at the end of 12 and be able to say that. That's it. John
Yeah.
Ryder said the same thing, though.
It's like when the bell rang to end the 12th. He was like, "Woo, I finally made it. I did it. I went 12."
Man, you know what? And it was a bad look for him, in my opinion, to come out afterwards and say, "Well, he knocked those other guys. I didn't get knocked out, but those other guys at least put up somewhat of an effort." That's how they
Right.
got knocked out. They were trying, and he was just better than them at the time. Knocked them out. John Ryder put up a better effort, had less talent as you could see than Charlo, and this guy just put it all out there, balls to the wall, like it was his last fight. And he still gave such a good account of himself. He got more respect in the loss than he probably would have gotten in a win against Canelo. And then Charlo, with all these measurables, all this talking, and the pedigree, comes in and does what he does, lays an egg. There's no other way to put it. I'm the only one in the panel who had taken this guy based on following the game plan, thinking that he was mature enough to follow a game plan. He didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I said I think most people would think he wins, but the judges would give it to Canelo. So technically, I picked Canelo, but I thought Charlo would do much better,
Yeah.
and he didn't come close to doing any of that.
So now what's next for both guys? Canelo, I think the only thing that can happen with Canelo now, forget Bivol, Benavidez has to be the guy. Because the speech he made after that fight of this version of Canelo can beat anybody pretty much. I'm the best right now. No one can beat this version of me. Well, if you're sparring, you look pretty damn good. If you're punching an Everlast bag, you look pretty damn good. If you had resistance and someone forced you to fight and they challenged your conditioning, even though you did go up to the high altitude in training camp, we would know more. But did Canelo look better because Charlo looked that bad, or did Canelo look completely different than he's looked in the past several fights when we thought he might have slipped?
Yeah, it's hard not to look good when the guy's standing on the ropes and running away from you, just taking your shots to the body, shots to the shoulder. It's like a moving punching bag, basically. So it's hard to say. he can say he's healthier, but like as we talked on the panel, every almost every boxer, the fight they have coming up, that's the best shape they've ever been in their life.
Yeah, I
So
remember Oscar De La Hoya saying that with the Felix Stern fight, and then he had like a beer belly with 6-pack on it. He was fat in that fight, and he also lost, but they gave it to him because the Hopkins fight had to happen. Yeah,
but
fighters say that all the time. The best shape of my life, and then when they lose, there's always some reason why they lost, and it's never the conditioning, or it might be the hand, it might be this. Things do happen in boxing during a fight, during training camps. It's rough. Like Coach said last week as well, no one goes into a fight at 100% ever, even amateurs
yeah,
or pros, especially amateurs. You're fighting all the time. I've had amateurs, I've trained amateurs. Guys pretty much had damn near black eyes and damn near broken noses going into amateur fights. So yeah, you're never healthy going into a full fight. But
I
once
think
next
the
year,
common denominator though for fighters who say they're in the best shape of their lives, they're all older. You don't
yeah,
hear a 20-year-old guy, 21, 22, 23, 24. They don't talk about the shape they're in. They're just in shape.
yeah, yeah.
It's the older guys that say, "Man, I had the best training camp ever. I'm in the best shape of my life," and it's hard to believe them.
They're still young. The younger guys. They're still young. They're spry, anyways. They got all that energy. They don't know how it is not to have that energy. And then when the grind gets to them, they make that money. Things start changing. But going back to Canelo right now, I think Benavidez is the only fight that makes sense right now that really has some consequence to it because he could lose his belt instead of Bivol going up to fight Bivol again. He doesn't want Bivol to come down, and then even if Bivol comes down, maybe Bivol loses by decision this time. I don't know. But the Benavidez fight now has to happen. If Canelo looks like this, considering that, okay, he does look like this, forget how Charlo performed, and he fights Benavidez like that, first of all, there's no way two Mexicans get in the ring and there's a bad fight. I just don't think that happens. I think that
Yeah,
Alvarez
I
will
don't.
fight.
I don't think he fights Benavidez like that. He's gonna have to be more careful. I'm not saying he's not going to let his hands go or he'll fight like Charlo, but he's not just gonna press the gas pedal all night long.
Have you seen Canelo fight cautiously before? Since I don't remember him fighting cautiously against anyone. I mean, even against Bivol would start smacking him around. He was still coming.
Yeah, but I mean, the first Triple G fight, he was fighting cautious. The second fight, he came out, he was more aggressive.
Yeah, you know
But
what? Yeah, that's true too. Because I thought he was doing more strategic, trying to set traps in the first fight. I picked him to lose by KO in the 10th round in the first Triple G fight. In the
right,
second fight, I picked him to win that fight, and he did come out more aggressive. And hey, he sucked it up when he was tired and still was throwing his hands. But he and Benavidez get together, a young guy who has that tempo, who makes you fight, and he has the power. He has everything you need, as a young fighter
right,
and a
the
young champ.
power.
Huh?
Yeah, the power.
Yeah,
He'll probably be the most powerful puncher that Canelo has fought.
and that's probably
He
true.
built Bevo, other than Floyd, probably the most skillful and has the size to do what he did, but not the strongest puncher. But you come at Benavidez. You know how George always says, "Don't follow a puncher
Don't
around the
follow
ring."
punches. That's true. But Canelo, to his credit, is a defensive guy. Even though he might have slipped a little bit, it might not have shown in this last fight. He didn't have anything to slip. So I think that fighting someone like Benavidez, who's going to throw a volume of punches. Benavidez did have his problems with Caleb Plant, who's more of a boxer and does have to, tall and slick. He is slick. He doesn't get enough credit for being slick, Caleb Plant. But Canelo's slick. But even if he's falling a little bit because he's getting older with his slickness, I just think it's an excellent fight between those two whenever they get in there. Now with Charlo, does he go down to 160 or does he do what we said last week? He probably shouldn't do because of the alleged Roy Jones effect coming from heavyweight back down to 175. Does he go to 152 to mess with Bud? Now Zoo is the champ, that one of the champs down there. Does he mess with him? What does he do?
Well, he's not a 168-pound fighter.
Oh, absolutely not.
Even other 160. I mean, if he fought Benavidez, he'd be more on his bicycle. Um, I don't know. Is he going to try and fight Caleb Plant or somebody? I don't see a future at 168 for him. So he has to go down. Does he go all the way down to 154? He still has 2 belts there, right? Or 3
Yeah,
belts.
two. Zoo has the other belt now.
Oh, it's the
Remember
4 belt era,
Oh,
though.
he had 4 belts. Oh yeah, but both of them do have 4 belts.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
bogus
so Zoo does
four
have one
belt
of the
era.
belts, and
So he has 3 belts he can defend. He says he wants Bud. Bud is maybe posturing, saying, "Nah, he's not worth my time." Blah blah blah.
Buzz a dog. He's fighting him
But
if he's taking
that's what
straight.
I'm saying. Yeah, three belts and a decent payday. Yeah, he's gonna go take those belts, and then he'll unify with Zoo. And who knows? He might retire after that. But getting back to Canelo, if it's not Benavidez, man, I don't know how much more fans can take. If it's not Benavidez,
The
who
other
is
Charlo, man, the other
exactly?
Charlo,
That's what I was about to say. Oh, the big Charlo's going to get revenge for his little brother.
bro.
If that happens, man, I will not watch. I won't even talk about it.
No, that's
You
guilty by
you ask me
association.
about it, I'll say next topic. Let's go. Keep it moving.
Yeah,
I will not talk about it.
yeah, that's guilty by association after what just happened on Saturday. So your brother, man, he can't fight either. We would just say that
And
he'll
he
be
hasn't
scared
fought in
too.
2 years, and we'll be saying the same thing. Was he rusty? Was it the long layoff?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about it.
Well, it was a dud of a fight. We said that already. We given our piece on the fight. Now it's time to move on from that because there was a huge sports weekend either way. And of course, last week when we came on, we actually had to have a separate show for the huge news in the NBA with Dame teaming up with Giannis and instantly becoming the favorites to win the NBA championships. But Drew Holiday was floating out there. Even it was a 3-man trade, 3-team trade. Drew is up in Boston, man. We talking Philadelphia. He is up in Boston. Now they're right behind Milwaukee in terms of the odds.
Right. I believe Boston is plus 290, or at least the last time I saw, and Milwaukee's plus 270. I actually like the Celtics better. I think Drew Holiday brings a certain toughness and grittiness and experience that team sorely lacks, man. I mean, you can say they got rid of Marcus Smart, but now they got a better player to replace Marcus Smart. Um, you know, Marcus Smart ain't tougher, smarter than Drew Holiday. He's not a better shooter. I'd argue that Holiday's a better defender, even also. So I think Boston slightly, in my opinion, right now. Uh, if I had to bet on somebody, I'd put my money on Boston coming out of the East. But we don't know how Dame's going to look in Milwaukee. I mean, if Dame comes out averaging 33 and Giannis is averaging 30, I mean, that's a tough 1-2 punch, man. So, it's a long season. The season hasn't even started. Training camp hasn't started. But right now, on paper, I like Boston's roster just a little bit better.
Well, James Harden didn't show up to Philadelphia's media day, so
No
there's issues
surprise
there.
there.
So training camp is around the corner. I mean, with Dame, he can not average as many points. And I talked about last week. What about this little pick and roll team we have Noah with him and Giannis? I think he can pick it up there. It just looks like on paper that they're gonna obviously. It's not even the weight of the big news that's pushing them to the front. It's the actual talent that's pushing them to the front. And now with the Boston Celtics, they may have the more rounded team and the deeper team. I think that team is contingent on what Porzingis does.
Yeah, it is. I actually don't like that they gave up Robert Williams the third. I think he was a key piece to them. Size, defense, rebounding. Uh, the unicorn. I don't know about his inside presence. He might be taller, but I don't know about him inside. He's kind of on the thin side. So they,
Still,
they might miss something with Williams.
yeah, Porzingis is a little bit on the
Without
thin
Williams.
side. He came into the league with something wrong with being on the thin side. I thought he would get bigger. He did get bigger. This is pretty much as big as he's going to get.
Yeah.
The injuries has been his problem in the past. And as we spoke about last week, at least I brought up last week, the nonsense that was going on in New York behind the scenes with his brother. And I thought, putting him out there as somewhat of a head case, goes down to Dallas. And we saw what happened there. Went out to Washington. Now he's in Boston, though. I think it might be a perfect landing spot for him. I think obviously a deeper team, probably the deepest team in the East right now. And I think obvious between those two, Milwaukee and Boston, is going to come down to those two. With these mandated rest days, I think that preserves these guys. So I think we don't even have to worry about too much, at least, if someone gets injured. The likelihood of them getting injured isn't what it once was when guys were playing 3 games in a week or 4 games in a week. And you think that they're going to burn out, even though they're getting all that money to do so. But yeah, man, this is gonna be something else. And you mentioned Marcus Smart. I've actually had that in the notes about Marcus Smart. Adding Drew Holiday is a better overall player than Marcus Smart. So they're just better now than they were
Yeah,
last season.
yeah. And looking at Portland and everything they got from the Lillard and the Holiday trade, they got a
Mhm.
nice haul, man. You
Yeah,
talk about Aiton and Brogdon and Williams and all the draft picks and the
draft
draft
picks. Yeah,
swaps, and
fun
man,
to
they're
watch, man.
yeah. Plus they had their draft pick. They
Scoop.
can cause some noise, you know. Of course, they're not going to challenge for much, but on any given night, you know, they can cause some problems for some better teams.
Yeah, a young team like that, because typically the better teams have the older players that are seasoned. These young guys, they can run you ragged, just get you tired. They'll make their
Man, I
mistakes.
ain't chasing that dude, coach. Man, come on, get
Exactly.
out of
This
here.
dude just flying through the air, all this craziness, getting the rise from the crowd, even when they're down by 30. They're still going out there, look mean mugging benches down by 30. You know, the vets are like, man, stop that nonsense. But they'll get tired of seeing them. But yeah, man, that's gonna be something else. Basketball is coming up. It's right around the freaking corner. You know, before we were talking about how you don't really want to pay attention to basketball in the NBA until December, man, because of what's going on now. I at least want to see the process work itself out in Milwaukee, seeing how it starts from the beginning until Christmas when things are kind of gelling. And
Right.
Milwaukee's surprise on Christmas Day in MSG. How about that, man? So yeah,
What
all eyes on them.
what's up with Jimmy, man, and his perm or his hair?
I haven't seen it, man.
You haven't seen it? Oh man, they got a meme of him already.
Bruh.
I can't remember the singer's name, but he had his hair straightened out to the side.
He got his drink
I
conked
think it
out like
was
the 50s.
80s singer. Yeah, that's how Jimmy showed up. I saw the picture. I was like, "Oh, that's Jimmy." Man, I thought it was a woman. For real, I'm not lying.
Oh,
I don't.
man.
And then I saw a quote, "I'm emo." Man, that dude must be in his feelings because Dame got traded to Milwaukee and not Miami.
Oh,
Something's going on with Jimmy. I don't know.
well, isn't there always something going on with Jimmy?
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's stranger than usual right now.
Well, we have to sit back and wait, and we don't have to wait long because, well, college and pro basketball about to start back up. But as we're in the moment, this past weekend also provided some more college football. And for the first week in a long time, Coach Prime isn't leading the way because we talked about the fight. But Coach Prime should lead the way if you're talking about any other college sport this week. His Colorado Buffaloes, I said this would be the beginning of a 2-game losing streak, Oregon and USC. But even though it was predicted, and although it did happen, it didn't happen the way I thought it would happen. Colorado's still a pain in the ass. Colorado's a pretty damn good team. You know, I don't know what happened, whether they turned the switch on because they were at home. I know USC had serious issues on defense last year, and it continues this year. But man for man, they were so much better, and it didn't matter. I mean, they were up before they had to bite their nails to stay up and win the game. Shador looked terrible in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, there was dinking and dunking. He was 8 for 8 at one point, or 8 for 9, 33 yards, or minus 33 yards as a total offense. And the next thing you know, this guy just starts reading defenses left and right. He finally got it. And he's hitting guys. He's not relying on one player. And man, it was just something to watch. And USC had to bite their nails on the road, and they should have fallen in the rankings. But they beat Colorado, but Colorado has a lot of life left in them. And I think they smoke Arizona State on the road this coming Saturday. A nice game by Coach Prime team. They responded well from what happened the previous week. That's why I think a lot of people wondered if they were able to respond and how would they respond after that blowout last week.
Yeah, that comeback was huge for them
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they got taken out back last week against Oregon. It was like a high school team against a college team, or a good, really good high school team against a freshman team. I mean, they were just overmatched, and then it looked at the same way against USC Saturday. But they kind of did it to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
The rugby punt that got blocked and taken back, or got blocked and interception here. Just they were making mistakes.
Sacks, bad
I don't
decisions.
I don't know what Coach Prime told him at the half, but he he had to have said something because they decided enough was enough and they came out there like gangbusters. And, to make it 48-41 when they were down 35-7, I think it was, or 34-7. I
I
mean,
think it was 34-7, but they were down big, man.
yeah, I think it was 34-7. And to only lose by 7 points, that's huge, man. And, that's something for them to build on. They already felt good about themselves, Oregon game notwithstanding, but now I'm sure their confidence is back up to the roof again.
Yeah, and Shador had 371 yards at the end of the day, 4 touchdowns and that 1 pick, and he looked like a quarterback this time. I've seen him since he's played at Jackson State twice, losing in the Celebration Bowl, and I remember he always would rely on one receiver. He never really read the defenses. Now he actually read the defenses, not chucking it up, making throws. That bullet he threw down by the goal line, that was serious. It was an excellent catch, but he read that, pinpointed it, made it happen. And I tell you, Anthony Hankerson, I think, is a big difference in that game, too, running the ball, because Dylan Edwards is just a small player. He's too small in between the tackles. He always got caught either behind the line of scrimmage or just a little bit ahead of the line of scrimmage, 2 yards, 3 yards. You need more than that. He was more effective catching out of the backfield in previous games, making big plays there. But Anthony Hankerson, a tough runner between the tackles, another one of those Florida boys on the Buffalo's team, and he played well. And they held USC, which is known for their quarterbacks and running backs for decades, under 100 yards for the game. That was impressive after giving up 262 yards to TCU, 222 yards to Nebraska, over 100 yards to Colorado State, who can't run at all. And then every yard they could possibly think of against Oregon last week, they pretty much slowed down the USC team. And they look good doing it, and they lost. There are no moral victories. This is a moral victory that matters, though.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, it shows a lot on their part to hang in there and make that kind of comeback. Although it fell short, they dominated the second half.
Yep.
Like they got dominated the first half. They can say we just ran out of time.
That's it. There wasn't enough time on the clock. They wanted to try to get it done. There wasn't enough time on the clock to pull it all. But I think Arizona State, they get it back on track against Arizona State, who hasn't been that well this year. And hey, man, they're going. I think likely they're going to a bowl game. But yeah, Colorado back on it, man. I don't know if Shador gets back into the Heisman Trophy race. And Caleb Williams threw 6 touchdowns and had 1 pick. And he looked okay. 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he still looked just okay, not great.
Yeah, I think right now it's his Heisman to lose. I mean, he actually is defending the Heisman, if there is such a thing as defending it.
Yeah.
I don't really see anybody else producing like he's been producing. So well, I think it's his to lose.
I thought, Michael Penix is someone who I talked about may have the upper hand, another Pac-12 quarterback, coming from the Big Ten, Indiana, which he started with. But he threw for a lot of yards, but no touchdowns, no picks. I don't know. And then you get Caleb Williams throwing for 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. He goes ahead of him in the touchdown total. And, well, yeah, I think Caleb is, again, the leader in the clubhouse. And our guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't think he has to worry about that. He may have an opportunity at a national championship if things work out for him and taking care of Michigan somewhere down the line. But, yeah, moving on to the other teams and things that have been going on in college football this past weekend, the alleged number 1 team in the country, and I say alleged, and that's Georgia. Georgia has some problems. The oldest rivalry in the Deep South, playing Auburn in Auburn, I knew they would have problems, but those kind of problems, I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did. Auburn just barely lost a game, 27-20 in Auburn with a team. Hugh Freeze has those guys playing over their heads, and I'm just not sold on Carson Beck for people who have watched that game. He's a local guy here in Jacksonville, went to Mandarin High School state championship, yada, yada. Sat behind Stetson Bennett all this time. You hope he learned. Man, he still locks onto that one player. Lucky for him, that one player is Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the freaking country right now. And he has him. Ladd McConkey comes back finally, but he didn't use him as well as he did, getting him the ball 4 times. And Georgia, giving him way too many yards on the ground. I mean, this is the result. Look, regardless of how you do your recruiting, and people talk about how Georgia's, kind of like Alabama in the recruiting, and that matters. But when you give up 25 players to the NFL draft in the past 2 drafts, 10 in the previous draft, 15 in 2022, you're going to have a problem. Because regardless of how well these players are, 5 stars and otherwise that you recruit, well, if they're not there for the entire 4 or even 5 years after a red shirt, they're leaving to the NFL, you're at a deficit. And it's showing they gave up over 200 yards rushing. That defense would have allowed that years ago. They gave up that against Auburn, and because of that, the game was as close as it was. I don't think Carson Beck has really stood out the way I thought he should with that type of weaponry he has on his team. But did you see that game or even care about what Georgia's doing right now? Because I don't think they're going to compete.
I didn't see it. And, I've been questioning for a couple of weeks whether they're the number 1 team in the country. I don't believe they are, but you say, well, they are until they lose. But this year isn't last year, and it definitely isn't 2 years ago.
No, my team is actually, if I had a choice, I would take Michigan right now as number 1. I know there may be Texas fans who want Texas at number 1 or believe Texas needs to be number 2, and there's an argument to be made.
I know Texas one guy who wants Texas number 1.
Yeah, I know that one guy too. But you know what? He has a real argument now, though. See, Texas got their spot and leapfrogging when they did because they beat an Alabama team in the beginning who we thought was better than what they turned out to be. Alabama is still ranked now number 12, after getting beaten at home by Texas. But Texas is where they are now, and Texas had to stop. Texas put up over 600 yards of offense against a good Kansas team. We can't, crap on Kansas because they're Kansas. They actually have a pretty solid team. They got blown out. I mean, over 600 total yards in that game, and 661 to be exact, and 336 yards rushing. Quinn Ewers, how can you ever throw for 325 yards and not look that great? 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but he threw for a bunch of yards. They didn't really need him. They were running up and down the field. But yeah, if I had a team to pick at number 2, it would be Texas, and I would have Michigan at number 1. And after this week, if Ohio State can handle an undefeated Maryland team, which I expect them to do and really make a statement, that's going to be something to talk about. But anyways, yeah, right now, Georgia, and I see why the voters kind of loosened the grip of Georgia when it came down to that number 1 ranking because of the way they played Auburn. And that's fair. They're still number 1. Better be glad they're still number 1. They could have easily been leapfrogged by Michigan because they won 45-7 against Nebraska. I understand. And Nebraska's defense, we know, was a pretty good defense, but I'm wondering now.
Saturday.
I'm wondering now, did they just get worn down because of the pathetic offense not doing what it needs to do? Jeff Sims is not the quarterback anymore.
No, the Michigan scored on their first 2 or 3 possessions. Their defense didn't stop them early. It wasn't a matter of them being on the field too long.
Worn down from just previous games up until now.
Oh,
they've been out there for a long time. But man,
they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get pressure. They run a 3-3-5 defense, and the 3 linemen don't put pressure on the quarterback. So he's got all day to stand back there and find an open receiver.
And McCarthy is one of those Heisman Trophy candidates as well. The numbers don't look gaudy, but he's on one of the premier teams in the country, Michigan being Michigan, and possibly number 1 at some point if Georgia continues to stumble as they look like they're doing, for their standards at least. And, McCarthy throwing the ball effectively, being efficient, but he's also so damn fast. That dude could run the ball. He's one of those guys that if quarterback didn't work out, put him in the slot. He might be another Julian Edelman when he came out of Kent State as a quarterback, but was the best athlete on the team anytime they played any MAC team. But yeah, Michigan certainly up there. And 45-7 says, they're serious. Knock Nebraska if you want. Knock all the other teams they've played if you want. They're winning those games decisively. And now that Jim Harbaugh is finally back, he was back last week against Rutgers, but he's finally back for the rest of the season, is a clear sailing moving forward. And that brings us to the Ohio State game. Well, Ohio State playing against Maryland. They need a decisive win, I believe, in order to show that they're the team. They're one of these teams that you have to worry about. The playoffs have been expanded. Everyone talks SEC and all of this other stuff. This year here, so far from the eyeball test, the Big Ten, in my opinion, with their top teams, are better than what the SEC has to offer right now.
It could be when you're talking about Michigan and Ohio State.
Penn State is awesome. Penn
Yeah, I
State's
forgot
pretty
about
damn
Penn
good.
State. They
Yeah,
destroyed Iowa the other day.
yeah,
Um, Ohio State, they had their big victory going into South Bend.
huge. Yeah,
Even though it was at the last second, it's not easy going into South Bend when they have
nope.
that high-powered offense and it's a night game. And they battled all of that and they came out victorious. Michigan, they're still going to have their test later this season. They'll have to answer that. Uh,
Yeah,
we'll see. But right now, you're right. They got three top 10 teams and they're playing like top 10 teams.
yeah, and you still have Maryland, who's undefeated. They're taking on Ohio State, another Big Ten team. So you're like, wow, how these teams, the Big Ten teams, playing that well? Well, that's what they're doing right now. And as it stands from the eyeball test, because I've watched a lot of college football, being here in the South, you get a chance to see these SEC people and teams. And from the eyeball test, once again, I think they're better than Georgia. I've already seen how much better they are than Alabama, because Alabama, even though they're beating up on Mississippi State and Mississippi, their quarterback situation is still a freaking mess. I don't care what anyone says. In fact, I'll go out on a limb right now and take Auburn to beat them in the Iron Bowl later on this season. But yeah, we just have to talk about that. Texas, we already had spoken about 40-14 blowout against Kansas. Kansas is a good team, but Texas put up 661 yards. Texas deserved to be number two, definitely top three. There's no argument anymore, regardless of how they got there, once they got there. But their Red River rivalry is coming up. We know how it is between Oklahoma and Texas this Saturday. We'll probably get into a little bit more of that at the end of this week, as we typically would. Notre Dame beats the hot Duke team. They go into Duke, they win. It was pretty much a struggle, but am I saying it's a struggle because we don't expect that from Duke, or was it a struggle because Duke was a good team, Notre Dame was a better team, pulled it off?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that big of an upset for them to beat Clemson, right?
Well, yeah, and that's true because Clemson ended up losing to Florida State, and now
In
Clemson went up
overtime.
to Syracuse, beat undefeated Syracuse, which is no big deal in my opinion, even in the Carrier Dome.
But they were undefeated.
Yeah, but going by the team they played, man, oh my, they played everything but Jeff Davis High School, so they got to that point. But hey, I think that was another big win. But Sam Hartman, the guy I've been touting for some time, didn't put up those big numbers. He was pretty pedestrian, but a win is a win is a win. But he didn't do it against Ohio State. So I think because Ohio State is that good defensively, we knew that much going in. I just thought that Notre Dame would have had more firepower on offense to handle them, and they didn't. And so, and we talked about Penn State being one of the top teams and in the most dominant conference so far this season, in my opinion. Some people in the SEC may argue and say something otherwise. In fact, they all will argue because they're all shills and believe the SEC is the greatest of all time. But the Big Ten is showing up this year. And so that brings us now with college football over for just a little bit. Other things did happen in college ball. We'll probably get around it sometime this week. Pro football, the 49ers still looking like the dominant force because the Philadelphia Eagles, the runner-ups from last season, had their problems against the Commanders. An old NFC East showdown. It went into overtime, but the Philly pulled it out. And Hurts looked pretty damn good finally getting into the 200-yard plus category.
I didn't see that game, but I saw it did go into overtime. Christian McCaffrey was doing his thing. He had three
This guy
touchdowns in
MVP
the
right
first
now.
half. Yeah, one receiving. That he's just amazing. 49ers is taking their claim as the best team in the league, right? Definitely the NFC.
Yeah.
But it's only week 4. Got a lot of football to play. Hopefully they stay healthy. That's my Super Bowl pick, I think, as it is yours.
Yeah.
And right now we're looking pretty good on that pick.
Yeah, and my defensive player of the year in the NFC as well, Javon Hargraves, got the lone sack in that game from the interior. Once again, this guy's getting the job done, man, getting the sack. I think he has 3 on the season. Keep it up. We need this guy to continue to do it, playing on perhaps the best defense in the league. The Rams actually are playing a lot better this year too. But right now, the 49ers, offense, defense, Christian McCaffrey, if he could just stay healthy. With the Carolina Panthers, he seemed like he was always freaking hurt. Now with the 49ers, he's not as hurt as much. Maybe it's because playing in Stanford, not too far away. He's in that region. He's just feeling better. And the load isn't falling on him. He's just doing a whole lot with the load they're giving him. Giving him a gas. He's making plays. Running between the
Yo, CJ Stroud, man, he got the Texans 2-2.
Man,
That
and that's
dude
what my
is
next
balling.
that's my next thing. My apologies to CJ Stroud. My apologies. Last week I gave him credit. My apologies this week. Forget I got nothing to say the rest of the season for him. Period. This is a guy I thought would not be that good of a quarterback going into his pro career. Not because of him not being able to play. I got caught up in metrics like the Wonderlic or what they're using now in lieu of the Wonderlic. And I saw the low test scores. I thought of Vince Young. I was like, man, you know what? It's going to be hard to decipher that NFL defense and look at this NFL playbook. This guy's going out there. He's doing what Russell Wilson had done when he came out of Wisconsin and took over the job in his rookie year with Seattle. And CJ Stroud is just off the freaking chain right now. He outplayed Kenny Pickett, who was the Steelers' first-round pick from last year.
Oh,
This
man,
is my man's first year. He's killing Kenny Pickett, and he's killing the Steelers.
right. He's throwing all that quarterbacks need to be developed crap into the dump, right?
Yeah.
He just came out there, maybe struggled his first week, but since then, man, he's been balling. He's got 2 W's. Um, who needs development? I guess he's a guy that you would think could have gone to any franchise, not like a lot of these other guys, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields.
I'm crying for freaking CJ Stroud right now.
Mitch Trubisky, all these guys that seem to have talent but don't figure it out. CJ Stroud is a bad dude, man. And, it might be a matter of time before defenses figure out, okay, this is what we got to do to nullify him. But for right now, man, it's impressive. For him only being in the league 4 games and doing what he's done, he got the sorry-ass Texans 2 W's in 4 games. That he's doing work, man. He's putting in work.
And I tell you what, he's putting up better numbers, even though he's in a different offense. But than the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence going into the season, they talked about how this may be the most potent offense in the NFL. The Jags, they're not even putting up over 200 yards passing a game, hardly 200 yards passing a game with Trevor Lawrence, 210, 216. CJ Stroud already beat the Jaguars, putting up numbers against them. Now he beats the Steelers, putting up numbers against them. But I think one of the more fun things I get to watch is how D'Amico Ryans is celebrate with the players, man. To see him on the sideline going up and down with the players. They love that guy, man. Yeah. I like watching that kind of interaction with players. D'Amico Ryans got these guys playing ball. He wasn't just one of these coaches that just kind of came up. You had to give him the job. This guy earned a job, and so far, he's doing a lot with this job. And coach of the year so far, when you talk about the first quarter of the season, or around the first quarter.
What were the odds for CJ Stroud for Rookie of the Year?
Oh, man.
He's got the inside track, man, right now.
I had Bijan Robinson.
I know. And not a bad choice. It's not like he's struggling. He's doing all right. But he's not doing what CJ Stroud is.
CJ Stroud is moving the needle with this team. Mm-hmm. And running back, and especially in today's NFL, running back don't necessarily move the needle anymore. And quarterbacks definitely have the opportunity to do it. And CJ Stroud is doing just that, man. I'm happy for him. If I'm ever going to be wrong, I'd rather be wrong like this when someone's flourishing. And if this is just the beginning and there's more to come with his development and obviously getting older, when we're waiting for him to just show what he has by his 3rd season, man, he's done it by his 3rd game. And he's going to have his ups and downs. That's what happens. But, man, this guy is so far ahead of the curve. Man, it looks like it's going to be fun as hell watching him. And so far, huh?
What's that?
No, I thought you said something. But, hey, once CJ Stroud, hey, he continues to get better. He continues to show that he's the truth in the NFL. And it's going to be fun watching him. There's a whole bunch of other young players. I mean, Justin Herbert is still someone that we watch right now as a young player, getting the big contract he had. Joe Burrow, what do you think about this mess?
Might be time for him to sit, man.
Yeah, because once he sits,
they're playing and losing. He's playing and losing. He's not getting any healthier. What's the point of playing?
Yeah, well, that big contract for them, that's the issue. That's the issue for them. But if he's not playing, he's playing, and they're almost losing their opportunity to get even into the playoffs. And we see how the AFC North is looking.
I'm saying if he's playing, let's say 65, 70%, and they're not playing well, and Jamar Chase is going off after the game, I'm open every fucking play. it might be time to let him sit for a couple weeks because they're going to have to make a strong push the second half of the season.
Oh, serious push, yeah. And
Right.
hopefully,
And if he's not getting healthier, they're not going to be able to make that push. So at least maybe sit him one game. Try and let him rest his body, get that calf healthy. But and I know it's a difficult decision because who's his backup?
yeah,
But again, if he's playing less than 100% and they're losing, I mean, not just losing, they got their ass whipped.
going out.
They
Yeah.
they, they only scored 3 points. So obviously he's not effective. And are we gonna say, oh, Joe Burrow sucks now? No, he's
No,
injured,
man.
man. Right, he's injured. So let him take some time off, try and get healthy or healthier, and then come back, see what he can do. Because right now he's playing and it doesn't even matter.
I think that big money is the reason why they have him out there. And I think that big money is the reason why he wants to be out there. You know how players may think, they don't want to feel like they're justifying that contract. And I know it has to be on their mind. You signed this huge contract and you're injured. And they're only human. I need to be out there. I need to justify. I know I'm hurt, but I need to be out there. And the team is not going to say no if he says he wants to play because of the money invested. And they'll say, talk about his competitive nature, even though what's best for him right now seems to be get a little bit of rest. Maybe they're trying to get closer to the bye week before they rest him. That way they can rest him right before the bye week, get the bye week, then come back, have that 2 weeks in the bank. I don't know when their bye week is coming because it needs to come soon. It can't come too late with that kind of strategy in mind, because the losses will likely just add up. And that AFC North is pretty bad, man. I'm not pretty and bad in terms of good. Baltimore's back on track too. Cleveland, even though Cleveland lost, Cleveland's still a pain in the butt for them.
Yeah, well, they lost to the Ravens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they lost to the Ravens. And Cleveland is still a pain in the butt.
Steelers are kind of suspect though. If Pickett's gonna be up and down, inconsistent,
I
I
expected
wouldn't
more
be
from him.
too. I wouldn't be too worried about him. Well, he looked good 2 weeks ago, but like crap yesterday.
Yeah, I was expecting more from him coming to the Steelers from the Pittsburgh Panthers. I thought he was a nice steal, a Steelers kind of player, a Ben Roethlisberger kind of player. That's what I thought he would be, but apparently not. But yeah, man, just right now, Cincinnati just has his work cut out for them, man. The playoffs aren't looking very good at this moment. But someone else the players might be looking good for, another team, would be Buffalo as they took on the Dolphins yesterday. And another huge game. We were expecting the back and forth. And we got it for a little while, but then one team just went forward and kept going forward and throwing the ball forward and running the ball forward. And it wasn't the Dolphins this time around. Not necessarily humble pie. This was just a nice competitive game between AFC East foes. Obviously, if everything stayed the way it is, playoff contenders.
I think there was some humble pie. A 48-20 or 21 ass whipping, and they couldn't do much after Buffalo got the lead, and they just kept extending it and extending it. Early on, I thought it was going to be like 45-42, 42-38 because first 5 possessions were all touchdowns, no punts. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Is anybody going to play defense? And then
Right?
Buffalo got a stop. I was like, oh, and then they got another stop, and Buffalo just took control of the game. But Tua, I think he pretty much said as much. He says he thinks it was good for some of the players on the team. So he thinks probably, I mean, it's easy to interpret that as he thinks a lot of people were overconfident and really feeling themselves. And this brought them back down to reality.
Man, but I don't think the Dolphins have too much to worry about. I think they're still going to eventually end up in the playoffs as long as Tua could stay healthy. Devon A-Chain, man, that guy's just something else. Averaging over 12 yards a carry this time. He averaged a whole bunch of yards last week. He's a small guy, so you gotta use him. You gotta use him in moderation. You can't really rely on him to be between the tackles. But he's that new age running back that's going to be able to do everything you need him to do, and he's making huge plays while he's doing it. Buffalo just had a whole lot going on with their team, home field advantage, and Josh Allen, an elite quarterback. They try to take this away from him. They're always throwing these things out there. And in the meme age, they want to talk about his turnovers and how he's like Lamar Jackson. Well, there's no comparison between those two in terms of turning the ball over and being able to read defenses and run a team. He doesn't have, he can run, but he's not going to run like Lamar. But Lamar isn't passing like him. And as a
Right.
quarterback, you want passing.
I take Josh Allen on my team as my quarterback any day of the week.
On my
He
team.
played, he played really well. Yeah, that dude's a stud, man. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I don't get the shade for him, other than people are idiots.
Yeah, anybody could just say someone is not a good player relative to the talent that's on the rest of the NFL rosters. But he is one of the best on those rosters right now. He's better than Joe Burrow. I mean, I think even with Joe Burrow not being injured, he's up there with, I think that's kind of, if you had a 1A and 1B, those
He
two could be
outplayed
1A,
Tua.
1B.
Tua was coming. Tua was coming, but he outplayed Tua.
Yeah.
And he said, well, maybe the Bills played better than the Dolphins defense, but still, he outplayed them. I mean, he could have played like trash, and the Dolphins won, even though the Bills played good defense. But that didn't happen. He outplayed them.
Yeah, and the Bills, I'll tell you what. I mean, the Bills, you look at what they did against the Jets, or the lack of what they've done against the Jets, all the emotion involved and the way the Jets have won that game. I don't think you just stamp the season and say, okay, they got off to a bad start. Things are just getting worse. We talked about the Stephon Diggs stuff, so we felt that cancer in the locker room would be even more of an issue. And I think it was accentuated after that loss. Okay, really, it did have an effect. Now they're back on track. Now they're blowing out the Dolphins. I thought, now that Aaron Rodgers
all water under the bridge now.
All water under the bridge. Everybody's happy. A different vibe in the locker room. I've been in a lot of NFL locker rooms, and unbelievable. You hear the stories from the outside about, man, the locker room could really determine what's going on. Guess what? A locker room could really determine what's going on. I've been in several locker rooms where you could actually feel when there's something wrong, or you can feel with the euphoria when things are going right. Man, I remember when the Jags lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it was a Sunday night game. And I tell you, Marcus Stroud came at me. He was always cool with me, but he was so pissed off. He came at me because I asked him about something between he and Alan Faneca, something to the effect of being pushed around like a cart in Walmart in aisle 10. He didn't like that part. But either way, he was getting shoved around. And I tell you what, man, you can always tell in a locker room how that can just, everything inside that locker room ultimately comes out in that field and kind of let you know. So I can feel how Buffalo is right now. They probably feel a lot better than they were feeling in the preseason when all this nonsense was going on. After the Jets game, when that happened, now they beat a division foe. I think probably the one that was the biggest threat to them, because the Jets and the Patriots aren't. The freaking Patriots are benching Mac Jones. Oh my, bro, it's craziness going on.
Who's his backup?
Yeah. So I don't. Well, Buffalo is Buffalo, and Buffalo's probably going to go far into
Yeah,
the playoffs.
but Josh Allen played yesterday like, fuck that Madden curse.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The Madden curse don't mean nothing right now. A lot of games to go. We don't want nothing catastrophic to happen. But, hey, man, he's playing like a man right now, a man possessed, and the NFL looking good because of it. So, yeah, and how about those Patriots? Losing. Mac Jones pulled out of the game. I watched a little bit of that game, and he's throwing picks. And man, another guy who's a local Jacksonville guy. I've watched him since high school. I'm always rooting for the Jacksonville guys. And if I'm in New York, I'm a New Yorker anyway. So if there's guys coming from New York or the tri-state area, Jersey, Connecticut, I'm always down with that. But I've been rooting for this guy forever. I wanted him to go to the Jets when he was drafted. He's with the Patriots, still better than anything the Jets have on their roster right now. But he just looked terrible, and he's not getting any better.
Yeah, after the pick six, I was done with that game. I said, I can't watch this. It was getting out of hand too quickly. And then I heard he got benched, but they're saying not for his play. Well, what was it then?
Come on, Bill Belichick.
Right.
Come on, you just saying got to put half your roster on the with the questionable report, or the injury report is questionable. The whole roster, yeah, they're all questionable. We might not even play this Sunday. Yeah, but
I don't know if it was for his health, whatever.
Why? Why was it blocking? We know what Ice Cube said about what's bad for your health.
Patriots offered little resistance last night.
Yeah, and I'm happy. The AFC East, the two teams I really don't like are the Dolphins and the Patriots, man. So I can live with that, but only because we're losing too. So what?
Yeah.
That's what ends up happening.
I don't know. Yesterday was a weird day in the NFL, man. Justin Fields looked like a good quarterback. Zach Wilson, until the fourth quarter, looked like a good quarterback. Patrick Mahomes looked pedestrian. Like
Yeah,
it was like opposite day or something. But the strange thing is, even though Justin Fields had 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, the Bears still lost and blew a 28-7 lead.
to
Even though
Denver
Zach,
though.
huh?
It's to Denver though. Oh my God,
Yeah,
I
Zach
think they had it in
Wilson
the past.
led a furious comeback, got the 2 point conversion, and they still lost. And Patrick Mahomes pulled out the W. So I guess all is right with the world after all.
Yeah, everything. They give you all that drama, give you a little leg and pull it back and still do what they've always done. And the reason why some are champs and some just aren't. I don't know how come these organizations just get it right many more times than not. And then teams like the Jets or maybe even Chicago, but you had a championship more recently than we have, and that was 85. So, and then you've been to the Super Bowl again since then. I've been a Jets fan since I've been born, practically, and they won in 69.
Mm,
That's it.
no
That's all I got
Super
to say
Bowls.
about that.
Mm.
Man, I was actually looking to go to the Super Bowl this year if the Jets had made it. And hey, that was the plan. And I've been planning for a long time, though, so that's nothing new. So whatever. But anyway, that pretty much is it for today when it comes down to the NFL, college football. Do we call it a fight or do we call it the session? Just calling it short for sparring session.
We just call it the past. Let's move on.
Yeah, the past. Let's move on from that, man. Any big fights? We had Usyk and Fury decided they wanted to fight each other. It may be in December, maybe in January. Are you even looking forward to that fight anymore?
Right now, I mean, he has Ngannou. I was like, just don't lose to no MMA dude, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too.
Um,
Yeah, that can
you
really
know, it's one thing for Floyd to fight an MMA guy because he's a smaller guy. He's probably not gonna knock him out.
Mm-hmm.
But Ngannou's a big dude, and if he catches you, who knows?
Yeah, and we always know.
When heavyweights get together, all it takes is one.
That's it. That's it.
And for him to get up off the deck, what, 4 times, 5 times? I don't know. I can't even remember. I lost count. Against Wilder and still win.
Yeah.
But then get knocked out by Ngannou. Then man, woo. You talking about Dana White talking shit.
Oh, forever. He'll have one up on boxing forever. He's always trying to throw shade at boxing one way or another. Regardless of what kind of big fight boxing has, he always comes with some type of shade to undermine what's going on in boxing, man. But if this nonsense would have happened,
that'll be the only reason I watch to see, make sure he doesn't get knocked out. If he doesn't get knocked out, there's no way Ngannou wins. He can outbox Fury.
I'm just hoping Fury doesn't play around because he like to play around in that ring. And he played around Deontay Wilder.
Man, I would love a 45-second knockout, man. Just put all that crazy shit to bed. Fuck out of here with your MMA shit.
But they're looking for the paycheck.
Keep it in the
guys come to boxing for the paycheck.
Stay in the octagon. Stay in the octagon. Same thing with boxer going to the octagon. The boxer has no chance.
No, exactly. Look at James Toney. A matter of seconds. Come on. And I'm hearing all these stories coming out of the training camp when he was so called preparing. James Toney's tapping people out left and right. BS. He tapped out the Hamburglar, man. Came in there heavy with that.
The only one who might be able to do halfway decent is Bud. Yep. Because of his wrestling background. If you don't have no wrestling background, you ain't gonna be no boxer going and be successful in the octagon. It ain't happening.
Nope. And yo, bro, I paid to watch Bud in the octagon, man. But I like because I like his chances. Because if these guys, they're gonna obviously go for his legs, try to shoot at him, because they're not trying to go hand in hand with him. No way. Even their pride, I don't think will make them that dumb. They'll try to do what they do best. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, they'd have to shoot. They'd have to shoot for his legs.
Yeah, they have to shoot for his legs, man. Because Bud catch you with those 2-piece, 3. Matter of fact, it might be a 1-piece because you're probably going down 2 lands. But anyways,
Bud would be like, I get to wear these little gloves. Oh shit!
Exactly. Those little ass gloves, man. I feel like the damn gloves you used to lift weights with. That's what it is, right, man. But hey, that'll be it for us today. We got enough into the house talking all the sports from the past weekend. We'll add more because there's more going on. Football still. There's Monday Night Football coming on tonight. The Giants in Seattle. I guess people in New York and Seattle are happy because I don't think anybody else can get up for that kind of a game. And then you still have baseball going on. And if basketball
we didn't even talk playoffs.
Exactly. The playoffs, hey, we might as well get into that. And You know, and man, we kind of neglected baseball, but
The
you know what? It's not
Orioles,
America's pastime anymore. But
yeah,
I,
but it's
and not
crazy. The Orioles won the division. They got the bye.
yeah, and the Yankees are not
Orioles,
in it. The Red Sox aren't in it. You know
yeah.
what? Give the other guys a chance to win something now. I mean, not like the Yankees have been going all the time any damn way, but hey, give these
Yeah,
other guys a chance to win. It's probably going to be something worthwhile. Typically, when the Yankees don't go to World Series, I say that year was when the World Series didn't happen, so I don't watch anyway. Sometimes, but anyway, we'll
yeah. I
get
think
there.
I'll be going for the Blue Jays. I just like their offense, man. They got some hitters on that squad.
But now that the Houston Astros are no longer a team that I like after their little rivalry, trying to make a rivalry with the Yankees. Come on, man. I'll be looking for another team too. I wouldn't mind the Orioles. They're not too far from New York. I
Well,
don't mind the
not
Orioles.
that they're my team. I'm just saying the team
Oh
for the
no, I'm
player.
saying the team that I'll be rooting for. I don't think the
Okay.
Orioles are going to win it,
No,
but
don't get it twisted, man. You see in the back.
oh
That's my
yeah,
team.
bet. I mean, just like the Yankees, man. But I can dig the Orioles. I met old Cal Ripken before, man. Cool dude. He was looking to buy the minor league team here at one point when they were the Suns and the Dodgers affiliate, but things have changed. But yeah, I don't mind if it was the Orioles. The Orioles are there, or it was a Rays, something like that. So hey, let's do it.
Yeah, I want to see Acuna do his thing too.
Oh, well, that's what I want to see overall. I really root for National League teams, but if I'm going to this year, it would be them.
He, not that he's Ricky Henderson like, but you remember back in the days when Ricky Henderson was on the Orioles, the A's,
The A's,
and he get that leadoff walk. Man,
forget it.
he's going. It's just a matter on what pitch. It
Yep.
didn't matter how many times the pitcher threw over. He could throw over 9 times. That first pitch, he's gone. He's on
He was a
second.
bullet, man. The way that dude
So
stole bases,
it'd
man.
be fun.
He
It'd
was
be
a
fun to
character,
see
man.
something like that again. Not that pitchers can throw over 9 times. They're limited now, but just that little cat and mouse game and seeing what Acuna can do.
And Acuna is a character himself too, so I'm glad he has that personality. He doesn't go overboard with it. Ricky Henderson was just something different for the times, the way he was going about it. His little ego and his stance. I used to try to do his stance, man. Your back get hurt. Try to squat down like that to pull it out of the yard, man. But he could steal them damn bases, man. If he couldn't do anything at all, he played football before. I think he was a native in California.
Man, you know what? If somebody picked a team, say this is my 9, and I'll put it against anybody, and they pick Ricky to be their left fielder, I'm not gonna say nothing about it. That he's the best leadoff hitter of all time.
Yeah.
Um,
How about the center field?
if he is he the greatest left fielder of all time? No, but I take him on my team.
Oh, come on. Well, I had him on my team when he was with the Yankees. He was a character, man. We had a bunch of big bats and didn't win a doggone thing the time he was there. These little big bats that we had. But either way, we'll get a chance to talk some baseball tomorrow. So for Bias, he's Bias. I'm Trav. And thanks for joining us. Until tomorrow.